And we will get going. Hi, good morning, hello, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from or watching the recording. Our workshop today is not a normal title for me. It is not normal for me to do a lot of rhyming. I'm normally just very straightforward, like we're going to talk about aligning roles and goals today. And then I was like, well, that's already rhyming. So now I got to like add a little bit more. So today we're going to talk about how do we align goals and roles so that there aren't any holes in our work when we're using a coaching mindset. So whether you're in an instructional coaching role or not, this will align because the work of schools is typically goal oriented, right? We're always kind of working towards something. And what's really important then is that the work that we do and the work that we are supporting when we are in a coaching role or a leadership role, we want to ask ourselves, like, are we doing the work that we set out to do this year? Right. So we'll get into it. Um, a little bit about me. I'm Linda Ryan. I am the owner of Linda Ryan Consulting. We are a one-woman show consulting company that works with schools and districts on improving literacy and instructional coaching systems. And what is not on here that is a fun fact is I really hate pickles. So if we ever have the opportunity to meet in person, you can absolutely have the pickle off my plate. And hopefully it has no juice that contaminated anything else on the plate. It's typically how it goes. Okay, so all of the workshops that I'm doing this year align to an indicator or multiple indicators in my free resource called the Coaching System Assessment. It basically just gives indicators and a rubric for 4 different areas that I always encourage us to think about when we're implementing a coaching system. We want to think about the people, right? Both the people that we support and who are the coaches. What processes are we using? What are the products or the outcomes that we seek as a result of this coaching work? And what is our coaching culture? And what I've found in all of my experience is that all of that matters. When one thing is different about the people, it impacts the culture, it impacts your products, right? And so today, what we're thinking about are from 2 different categories. The coaching role is clearly defined, is from the people category, right? So how are we being clear in what we're asking coaches to do? And then the goals for the coaching program are clearly defined. Now, what we're talking about today is the school improvement goals, right? Or district improvement goals. But we can also think of those as foundational to what are the goals for our coaching program? What do we want coaches to do? And so what I'm hoping we can do today is bring a through line between the people and the product sections, which is what the goals is a part of, so that we can start to see that having some alignment helps us do this work best. Any questions about that? Okay. So that's my goal today is let's align school improvement goals, insert district goals, insert any kind of improvement goal. It doesn't have to be school or anything. It could be self-improvement goal, right? And if you're doing life coaching, right? Like you want to know that your life coach's actions and their support aligns to the goals that you're seeking, right? It's the same thing here. So whatever goals are, and I think the interesting thing that we'll find is year to year, oftentimes goals change, right? Or we find ourselves supporting different initiatives as a result of new goals or new legislation, things like that. So if we are working with a coaching definition or a coaching description, job responsibilities, right, that hasn't been updated, then we might be out of sync, right? So that's the goal. That's the goal for today is for us to have a chance to take a look at that. And so we'll do it kind of in general, and then I'll leave some work time for us to think through it together. So why think about alignment? So I'm in North Carolina, and something that's really, and I'm a literacy gal, right? So we're all math people, but my love and my support and my work tends to lean on literacy. And so a really interesting article came out from EdNC by Liz Bell, and she was covering 3 studies in North Carolina that UNC Charlotte did. And it's the work of Paola Pineta in UNC Charlotte and a whole slew of other researchers. And what they were looking at is in 2021, right, North Carolina enacted some legislation about aligning everything to the science of reading. And one of the things that they put in place was making sure that we wanted the goal, right? The goal of all of this legislation is that we have proficient readers by third grade, right? And so one of the other pieces of that was thinking about evidence-based reading instruction practices, right, that address all of these things in schools. Out of that legislation, most of what happened was getting teachers into letters training, right? So that they deepened or started deepening their knowledge of what are we talking about when it comes to the science of reading? What is our understanding of structured literacy, right? We have to know what that is before we can do anything with it. But what's really interesting is these studies have then looked at what's the impact, right, of this legislation? What are we seeing in terms of classrooms? And one of the things that they found was during letters training, there was varied support from administrators and coaches, right? So sometimes administrators would visit without with a focus on science of reading, but it wasn't frequent, right? Interesting. And the main support that administrators provided was extra planning time, which makes sense, right? Letters is time intensive. Going through that is like earning a second master's, right? So it makes sense that giving teachers back some time was maybe the right component at the time. But what's really interesting is this quote. Many teachers felt that higher levels of support from coaches would be valuable to help them implement these reading practices. This, to me, is the crux of what we're talking about today, right? We had all of these teachers doing all of this learning without anybody talking to them about it and helping them think through what do we do with it, right? Um, so there might have been instructional coaches in place, but their work was not necessarily specific to the work that we were focused on through this statewide professional development initiative, right? Just it's like just come out, right? So I'm like, man, this is a call for coaching, right? Like we're not done with this. Teachers, the vast majority, we had 44,000 teachers across the state who were trained in letters, right? And even those teachers, there's still some work to be done. So it's also interesting to think about then, have we shifted our goal, right? If we're a leader, have we shifted our goal away from science of reading, or have we realized that maybe we still need to be thinking about this? Okay, so I have another metaphor here. This is Scrat from Ice Age, and it's just a short little clip. Hopefully my YouTube works. We'll see. If not, I'll talk over it. Oh, you know what? I bet I didn't share my I think I didn't share my sound. Hang on. Bear with me a moment for my granny technical difficulties. There we go. Okay, let's see if this works. Tell me if you can hear it. No? Okay. You can see it, yeah? That's what matters. Okay. So, Scrat is so interesting, right? Because his goal is to get this acorn and to be able to eat it, right? It's his goal during the whole movie, during the whole series, in fact. And it got me thinking about like, what do we do when this is what coaching feels like, right? It's like, let me go take care of this fire. let me go plug up this hole. Let me go take care of this fire. I can't get to what I want to do in coaching because everything's off track and everything needs to be fixed, right? And I think this happens sometimes too when we are working with newer teachers sometimes and we think about, oh, like we can't work on anything instructional until we get classroom management figured out, right? And there's some truth to that, but I also, it's that chicken or the egg thing, right? What if strong instruction is the framework that the teacher needs in order to take care of classroom management? Right. So I say all of that to say, if it feels like all you're doing is hanging on to this acorn, but you're putting out fires everywhere or trying to keep the dam from breaking, there could be a way for us to focus our work, right? Yes, we may have to manage some of those other things at the same time. So then it's like when we have time to be thinking about instruction, for example, right? What is it that we're focused on? Can we have clarity about that? I think that can come from the current focus, right? Whatever our goals are for the year. Okay, so I have some samples. This is long, and these are all of the goals associated with a local school. Here, I'm in Charlotte, Mecklenburg. They're public, so I'm not throwing any shade anywhere. I actually just talked about them in a recent newsletter from my monthly newsletter. And what I was thinking about in that newsletter was how do we maximize instructional time when we have this many goals, right? Like, can we get clear on what it is that we're thinking about? So it's the same idea here with coaching, right? There's a lot to cover here. And what's interesting is these are all listed, but not all of them will necessarily pertain to instructional coaching work, right? It's probably not going to be the instructional coach's job to figure out 30 minutes of duty-free lunch unless they're part of the plan that provides that coverage, right? And then it's not about the coach's work, it's just managing their schedule as a result of that, right? That used to be me. I was always on lunch duty and I had to be mindful about that chunk of time makes me unavailable, right, to support other folks or visit classrooms during that time. So some of these bottom ones, right? How does the coach help retain 90% of highly qualified teachers? Depends. Is the coach only being assigned to the teachers who need to be fixed? Right? How does that impact a coach's ability to support that school improvement goal? Lots of things to think about here. Okay, so these are just samples. We'll go back to them in a minute. And then I pulled this list of just sample instructional coaching roles. These are very generic from Google AI. So admittedly, right, like these are literally just a web search and what are the most common things. But what's interesting is, right, one of them is that coaches collaborate with administrators to develop and implement school-wide goals, right? But that is also in the midst of this giant list of other things. Do we know that the coach we've hired has the capacity to do all of this? Have we designed a schedule and helped them manage what this time looks like? Do they know how to analyze data and lead other people through it? Right? Like there's all of these questions about the alignment, both who we've hired, but also some of the other things that we have in place that tell us whether or not this coach is able to do any of this work aligned to these school-wide goals. So before we reflect on this, I have a quote from Steve Barkley. He wrote a blog about coach job descriptions that really resonates with the topic that we're thinking about today. What he found was in his review of coaching job descriptions, they were often written at a district level, right? But being implemented at a school level. And what I thought was really interesting, he mentioned like the goal is to create an increase in student learning, right? And that occurs from things happening in the classroom. So if the coach he ends here by saying like we should be asking what needs to be observed following the training, right? It's not just like implementing this math curriculum. It's about our students learning as a result of what we're doing with this curriculum, right? So I really appreciated that because so often I think coaches are asked to support curriculum implementation, right? Which is a really important foundational step to getting teachers to implement high quality instruction, right? Especially those who have less experience and need a script and support to lean on. And yet, if a teacher is simply implementing that without any formative assessment and they aren't checking to see is the way that I'm delivering this curriculum landing on my students? Do I have data that tells me students are ready to access this tier one core instruction or not, right? What am I doing in order to create opportunities for them? So I just really appreciated what he had to say because he even says, I might be told that the school improvement plan is to have all the teachers trained in the new math curriculum program. Well, that's great, but that ain't going to impact a math student outcome increase. Not necessarily, right? Like, what are we doing about that? Okay, so what I want us to, y'all can come off mute if you want, or you can just self-reflect, but I want to think about these bottom three goals from the sample school improvement goals that I have and all of these coaching roles. Do we see any alignment here on what the coaching actions will be, right? That supports or moves us towards any of these goals? Is it possible that providing support and guidance on teaching strategies, curriculum, and assessment could impact these two? Maybe, right? Oh, we've got a chat. Sorry, I missed it. Yes. Okay, so these bottom ones don't necessarily support these here. Kim, is that what you're saying? These down here? Yeah, right? These aren't necessarily supporting our highly qualified teachers, right? And again, who is the coach supporting? A lot of times, principals don't want coaches to be working with their most highly qualified people, right? Because we see coaching as a way to fix people, which speaks to a culture issue, friends, right? It's all about the system. It all works together. So again, we might see some impact on this, but really we're not seeing a lot of support of this one. Nothing about highly qualified teachers has been included. We haven't identified anything about, right? Maybe analyzing student data could get there. That's possible. Um, but I guarantee those teachers don't want a coach to come and model a lesson. So if that's expected of the coach, they're not being allowed to be responsive to their folks, right? Yes, for sure. Thank you, Kim. Other thoughts here?
That's true, and something that, because you know the dynamic of our school from last year, we still have a lot of BT teachers.
Sure.
So we had to kind of shift our thinking, and with new leadership, really pour into our BTs last year. But one thing that we're looking at now is providing coaching for veteran teachers as well.
Love
Areas
it.
that they um, need support in, just changing with district initiatives and, whatever it may be. So that is something that we're hopeful to implement throughout the year, take on more veteran teachers throughout the year through a cycle.
Awesome. And I think it demonstrates a really smart way to address the capacity of what you had the bandwidth for, right? Knowing that this is where our need is, right? And you can't coach everybody all the time on all the things, right? So having a really targeted approach speaks to this, right? Our goal was to ensure that across the board, all teachers have the support they need. And if that meant that some of your veteran teachers received less support at the time, that makes sense,
Mhm.
right? And now that you're in a position to provide support, you're able to do it. I love it. That's the system working together. Good deal. Kim, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Melody. I feel like a lot of times we kind of get side railed, and for certain Melody would agree too, especially for our BTs, for those teachers that are experiencing, I call them instructional hiccups, and so then all of our efforts, are, we just run, in that direction. And, we definitely need to grow all, in their capacity as much as they pour into the students, whether it be veteran teachers or VT teachers, we want to make sure they're being instructionally fed too.
That's right. That's right. And the reason that this one was important, right? This was one of the school improvement goals, right? If you're saying this publicly, right, that's an expectation in North Carolina that your school improvement goals are out there, they're on your website, your team brings together the community and the parents to talk about them. If that's true and that's one of your goals, what are you doing about it? What is right beyond some like how is there an expectation that the instructional coach is a part of that? And how is their work supporting attaining that goal? Okay, so before we practice with our own stuff, why think about alignment? Okay, so I want us to think about a sentence starter, right? Alignment between goals and coaching is important because, let me drop that in the chat. Alignment between goals and coaching is important because. And if you want, you can drop it in the chat or come off mute to share how you would end that sentence.
Okay, I'll go.
Come
It
on.
just, it just ensures like that professional growth is intentional, it's focused and impactful because this provides that clear direction.
Love it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, I mean, all of those things I mean, I agree with. I mean, she hit a lot of the marks, and just we're all working together in sync, like you said. If if I have different goals than what school improvement is, or and what admin's thinking, then everybody is not in sync. We're all trying to, as you're saying, your tagline says, like, plug different holes. We're all doing different things,
Right.
and we can't come together for that common goal to help our teachers and students succeed throughout the year if we all have different focuses. So like she said, it has to be very focused and very intentional.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, I can't help but think about when a coach comes and sits down with a teacher and they ask the teacher, well, what are you working on this year, right? Or an administrator asks a teacher to develop their own professional development plan or professional growth plan, right? And none of those goals are aligned to the work that we as a school have deemed most important, typically for good reason, right? What then are we allowing in terms of that teacher's focus as well, right? So as coaches, if we want to enter a conversation that allows us to center that and say, like, we can say, hey, like, I know our goal, our school goal this year is this. What are you working on in alignment with that? How can I support you in achieving this goal? Right? Or what does your goal do, right, to support our school goal? And I think it's okay to say that, right? And to not, that doesn't make you an unresponsive coach, right? It just helps everybody stay focused on, like, this is the work that we're here to do. So for me, I feel like this shifts us from coaching everything, right? The scrat on the left, to coaching in alignment and with purpose, right? Now we have a clear idea of what it is that we're trying to help teachers focus on, do, and improve anybody's work, right? This is why it's so applicable for coaching, whether it's new teachers, experienced teachers, folks who are figuring it out, those that are choosing teaching as a second career, right? What is it that we are doing in our work as a school, and how do we all make sure that we're rowing in the same direction? So here's what we're going to do today to kind of get into it and get nitty gritty. What I want you to do, and you don't have to share this, right? This is just a guide for you to start thinking about your own work. So I want you to locate a district or school improvement goal for the system that you're working in. And you don't have, if it doesn't work for you to do this live either, not a problem. This is going to be recorded, right? So you can always go back and hit pause on this and just do the 3 steps. Same for those of you watching on YouTube. So you'll locate the goal, and then we list our current coaching actions and or focus, right? Where have we been spending our time? What has our coaching support looked like? Right? What has been the topic of conversation? And then the question to ask ourselves is, does the goal and our list match? Do y'all want a minute to do this live? Because I can pause the recording to do that. Okay, so back from our pause. So now it's time for us to reflect on, do they match, right? Do the goals and the work of our coaching work, do they match? And it's either going to be a yes or a no, right? I'm not letting you be gray and say, well, some do and some don't, right? Because we either are rowing all in the same direction or not, right? Now, if you are gray and the answer is yes and no, right? I suggest that you consider the questions in both of these columns. But if you're a yes, right? If the goal and your coaching, if you see some alignment between your coaching work and a school improvement or district goal, I think it's important to ask yourself, how did this alignment happen? What led you here? If it wasn't intentional, how can we make it so moving forward, right? Which means we may have to think about what current or future barriers might need to be removed so that you can continue to have that impact, right? And continue to maintain that focus. What is it that's going well right now that's allowing you to do that? And how do we keep creating opportunities for that yes to happen? If you're a no, that's okay. What we want to think about is what actions, coaching actions, are currently happening that can maybe be dropped, or you can request to drop to make room for aligned actions. And then start thinking about, well, what might I be doing differently if I was able to? That better aligns to this goal's purpose. What would I want to find myself doing to say, yep, that's an alignment. Yep, that's an alignment, right? We want to explore that and start brainstorming. Well, what do I want to find myself doing instead? And my follow-up question to that is, What knowledge and expertise do you need to support this goal? One of the things I found myself reflecting on as I was preparing for today's workshop was one of the coaching role samples talked about supporting teachers in using technology to enhance student engagement and learning. That's not Linda's wheelhouse, right? But if that were a school improvement goal and it was my job as an instructional coach to support it, I would need to work on identifying, building some knowledge for myself so that I could support teachers. And one of the reasons coaches are well equipped to do this, even if it's like implementing a curriculum and the coach has never done it and the teachers have never done it. And the coach is like, how am I supposed to support this thing? I'm learning at the same time as the teachers, right? The way I see it is coaches potentially have more time to go into deeper understanding than teachers do. Right. And so that to me is how you can be starting at the same time, but a coach can maybe have a faster trajectory of learning. And so that would be on my mind in terms of knowledge and expertise as an example. Any questions or share outs from a reflection for you? Okay. I also wanted to think about sample prompts because if you were a no and you found yourself needing to ask, hey, I would like to make some shifts, right? But you're not in charge of your job description. We got to talk to some people, right? We got to potentially talk to some leaders. So I wanted to leave us with some prompts that may allow us to facilitate that conversation, right? So here are some stems that you could use to help prompt a conversation. And you might even say, like, hey, I attended this workshop and it got me thinking about whether my coaching work is aligning to our school improvement goal this year, right? And it's early enough in the year that we can make that shift and have a much higher impact on student outcomes. So these are just some examples. I will be sending them in my follow-up to my friends that have registered. So don't worry, but you're welcome to take a picture of them or something if you would like, if they're helpful. Yeah, starting with a purpose, not a platform. I love it. So good. And that's it. That's it for today. Any questions, key takeaways, or actions you want to take as a result of our short learning time?
Just one thing to
Yeah.
kind of take away in reflection, and I remember us discussing this last year, is I have admin interns that are kind of in an AP role this year, but previous years there's not been that. So just making my time intentional and carving out the times and not taking over or,
Yeah.
it's kind of out of my control sometimes. Like if admin's not on campus, things come my way. But just being intentional to carve out the time necessary to reach my teachers.
Love it.
I think
Yeah,
that's just, that's just in my school, in the demographic of my school. I think that's just an important part here.
for sure. When you have the time, how are you using it? Right? Because you're right. We can't necessarily control all of the responsibilities that come with the job. But then it's about, what am I doing when I am sitting down with a teacher? I love that. Thank you for that. It's an important takeaway. Kim, anything you want to add?
Absolutely. I just feel like one, I love being able to just look at district goals for that. I feel like sometimes we kind of treat coaching as an isolation moment, that it's only specific to the classroom, like when globally, like we've got to look at it in all areas. And it's going to help me become more intentional with conversations and just how I need to pivot my day in order to support others for certain.
Love it. Awesome. It's so easy, I think, to see the goals or be a part of the meeting, right? Where we kind of name those are the things that we're focused on for this year. And then we just kind of go about the business of school, which is important, right? but also like there's a reason that we said that these were important this year. So if we're not being, we're gonna be disappointed at the end of the year, right? If we're not thinking about them in every moment of our time. Okay, so I will be sending the coaching system assessment. I'll be attaching that in a follow-up email, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can download it for free in exchange for an email, please. Just a small thank you. And I also took the coaching system assessment and turned it into an ebook. So I've gone a little bit deeper with all of those indicators. And this is just an excerpt from those two sections that support the indicators we discussed today. This is available to purchase on my website. But that is not a pressure for anybody attending live. But if you're interested in going deeper in what the coaching system assessment provides, that is a helpful resource for you. And then if you have not yet connected with me somehow, I thank you for finding your way to this workshop. And I encourage you to connect with me on social media if you'd like. You're always welcome to send an email. I have a monthly newsletter that goes out as well as a Calendly available if you would like to schedule time.